Hi everyone, my name is Sydney Stewart, and my proposed study title is The Early and Late Immersion in Digital Media Environments, a Media Ecology Analysis of Communication Development. So, over my research, it explores how early versus late immersion into digital media environments shapes our communication development, our relational experiences, and our meaning-making processes. So, when we talk about digital environments, those are the things that we interact with on a day to day basis that are behind your screen, whether that be social media, text messages, phone calls, emailing, music, even. All of those things have a way of shaping the ways in which we communicate with one another, the way in which we interact with one another, whether that be through body language or just our physical speaking. So rather than approaching digital media as simply just a tool that we use, I wanted to frame it as more so as an environment that we as individuals use. And this perspective is completely grounded in media ecology. Excuse me, as Marshall McLuhan famously argued in The Medium is the Message, which is stated in 1964, that media does not merely transmit content, but it reshapes the human perception, cognition, and social organization. In other words, that the medium truly alters how we think and how we interact. So, a way you can think of it is when you see something on social media, when you hear something on social media, whether it be through a video or word of mouth through a friend's post, it alters how you may think or interact with somebody moving forward because you have a different perspective. Or even if you are to hear something in your home, that gives you a different perspective as well. Neil Postman, on the other hand, describes media as an epistemological environment that influences what a culture recognizes as knowledge and as truth. So he argued that communication technologies restructured public discourse and shaped not just what we say, but what we're capable of thinking. So together, the two of them established the foundational premise of my study: how communicational technologies function as a formative environment, not just a neutral instrument. So my study asks, how does the immersion timing in these digital media influence communication expectations, our depth of our relationships, and how we interpret things? To grow further in my studies, I wanted to draw from social information processing theory, which was developed by Joseph Walther in 1992, which argued that relationship development and computer-mediated communication is possible, but it also unfolds differently due to the reduced nonverbal cues and asynchronous interactions. This came about specifically through COVID-19 when we were put online and forced to social distance, and everything that we did became asynchronous. We relied on textisms, which are emojis, exclamation points, ellipses when you use those in your text. So you had to interpret how people were feeling through what they said via text. You truly didn't know what anyone was saying unless you could really express their punctuation and emotion through their punctuation. So, this shift supports the argument that these communicative norms are evolving structurally, not just through the style. It's the structure as a whole. In addition, the interpersonal adaptation of media environments influences our whole border perception, which shifts a lot. As I wanted to go through my study, I wanted to really focus on the methodology that I used. So with my methodology, I wanted it to be a qualitative study, and I wanted to have two different cohorts. One cohort with individuals who experienced early digital immersion, so they were exposed to the use of smartphones, iPads, all of that kind of stuff at an early age in childhood, and then another individual study that had a later immersion. So they went through the majority of their childhoods without smartphones, without this technology, and they were introduced to these things at a later time in their life. So the questions that I asked were used to examine and interpret the perceptions of relational depth, the interpretations of tone, and the meaning in digital messaging, to comfort with asynchronous versus synchronous communication and the expectations of availability and immediacy. And so this data will be analyzed using thematic coding and seeing what are the common themes that we find through these interviews, through these interactions, and the goals will determine not necessarily if digital immersions is good or bad, but what is it doing to our communication? How is it affecting our communication? Because not because the use of it is poor, but our communication does shift. Just because you're not able to communicate as well as in person doesn't mean you cannot communicate well. So I'm really looking forward to completing this study. I think this research truly argues that digital immersion is not just behavioral exposure, but it is a developmental formation. And if these media environments are introduced at the right timing, they could be very, very impactful on the trajectory of our human lives and our communication as a whole. And thank you so much for listening. I apologize for the voice. I've been sick for the past week, so thank you for hanging in there with me, and thank you for taking this class with me. Bye.